This video is called I Did Not Expect This. FF14's biggest problem is now a strength.
FF14 is just getting better with every patch, but we all know that A Realm Reborn gets a bit rough. It's the biggest blocker to Heavensward actually hooking people. The early dungeons and then 2.0's finale, they almost feel like a different game. And that's almost the point. They basically were. Even when held back by that, though, FF14 has seen explosive growth. Do you want to know what the most recent Lucky Bancho numbers are? Well, it's 1.7 million active characters. That's pretty damn cool. And that's also in spite of the 2.0 jank. That, then, is why 6.1's best new feature for the long-term health of FF14 is the removal of annoying bullshit and fixing up some of the worst parts of the game. What was incredible to me is how much more than simple fixes this stuff is. It is super, super exciting. And you, yourself, like Yoshida, can fix problems with Ren, today's sponsor.
Oh my god, dude.
For you to do some good.
We have to watch this out of courtesy, dude.
Get 10 extra trees planted. Okay, so you know the deal. The planet's getting a bit banjaxed, isn't it? And it's often very hard to feel like you can actually do anything about that, especially when we're all busy.
Yeah, dude, Bellular always does that. He always does that.
And it's a bit depressing, and you feel
he's like,
helpless.
but before we continue,
that's why getting Ren on board is exciting.
We have to watch it.
Is to first let you understand your own carbon footprint through their quiz, and then just let you do something about it easily through a monthly contribution that is tailored to your footprint, so you can understand where your money is put to work, especially because you learn about the projects you're supporting. Right now, there's a really cool one, Biochar in California, to sequester carbon and prevent wildfires.
Okay.
Tree planting in Africa. It's a project that's planted.
This is a new one.
Trees so far.
I've never seen this sponsor before by Bell.
And drones to help indigenous populations protect the Amazon rainforest, which is pretty badass. They're like using drones and satellites to detect and prevent deforestation. It's great work. And Ren gives us the power to reduce.
At least it's not Squarespace or Nord. Yeah, basically.
Projects, time and complexity.
Has Bellular ever done a Raid Shadow Legends sponsor? Like, has that ever happened? I need to know. Has one day come where Bellular decided that one day he would do a Raid Shadow Legends sponsor? You don't think so? Okay.
Are often the barrier to getting involved with this kind of thing, and that is how Ren helps out. The first 100 who sign up with my link down below will get an extra 10 trees planted, so do hop down to that link. What a cool sponsor to have on board, so thanks to them for the great work, and let's go.
Okay, here we go.
I'm going to start off with a more pedestrian thing, and we'll get into the crazy stuff in a bit. But this is important, because what do you think the worst bit of ARR is for new players? Now, if you guessed Praetorium, that's a good guess. But
no,
like me,
the worst part? Dude, this was the best part. This was literally the most fun part of the whole game I've ever played so far. How is this the worst part? Maybe he's talking about pre 6.1, but this is not the worst part, bro. This shit was fun as fuck.
The time you hit level 50, you know, you get...
No, I'm not mad.
The story's kind of got you hooked enough to suffer through the jank. The kind of worst bit that 6.1 actually fixed is how miserable some of the early dungeons are. I mean, they have their charm, but... man, Copperbell Mines, you know what it's like when it comes up in leveling roulette. Nothing screams, this is a fun, exciting game that you should play, like falling asleep your keyboard.
Yeah, that is... is the video quiet? Okay, thanks for letting me know. Let me raise it up a little bit. Yeah, I raised up the volume a couple decibels. And that is one thing that the game really does suffer from, right? It does suffer from the fact not only is the story slow to pick up in the beginning, but a lot of the game design too, man. Like the 2.5 second GCD from the beginning. And then you have to do dungeons like Copperbell Mines. And not only that, but it's also the worst graphically. Like they're putting the worst foot forward. And it's such a problem, man. Especially since the people who play Final Fantasy in general are from an older demographic, right? 18 to maybe like 50. Teenagers aren't really playing 14 that much. And so these are people who are stuck in their old ways. I'm talking from my own personal experience here. I'm stuck in my own ways with WoW in terms of how fast the combat is, in terms of what to expect. And so when you're putting your worst foot forward, and I understand why that is, when A Realm Reborn came out, they didn't have the resources that they had for later expansions. They didn't have the experience that they had for later expansions. And not only that, but they were also trying to maintain 1.0 all simultaneously at the same time. And I kind of talked about this yesterday on stream. Because of the success of Heavensward, that gave them more funding to then make Stormblood better, which gave them more funding and more resources and more, runway to then go ahead and make Stormblood, and then Endwalker. So each expansion, from a business perspective, because they're getting more and more and more money, and Square Enix is continuously seeing that they're getting more and more success, therefore, maybe putting less pressure on Yoshi P and giving him more creative freedom and giving him more and more of a budget, because each time they give him more of a budget, he sells more copies. And so this is one of the reasons why they end up putting their worst foot forward. It's not really their fault, and it's not like there's much they can do about it either, because so much of the story depends on A Realm Reborn being the way that it is.
Waiting for an enemy to spawn. But now, it is so much better. Every boss is redesigned to genuinely feel more like an easy Endwalker dungeon boss than whatever crazy weird experiments they were trying before in 2.0. Kotos now does an easy mode version of the jumping around like Rala, instead of the painfully slow wave defense. I mean, my god, that was so boring.
Wait, they changed these earlier dungeons? Wait, was this with 6.1? Did they make changes to Copperbell and Shatashta and stuff with 6.1? No way, dude! What? Are you serious? I never got to play that. Maybe I go back and try that at the end of the stream today when I level up the Black Mage. Are the changes like really good? They reworked almost all of 2.0 MSQ and 6.1. Holy shit. Different, like fun different, or different like mildly more engaging but still like face roll easy?
Ikoros Ire now teaches players to watch what's
much better. I gotta try that then.
To dodge mechanics with the slimes and GYG.
You still have the problem with the class design, right? Like the 2.5 second GC in the beginning is such a problem, man. Especially if you're coming from World of Warcraft. It's actually interesting stuff now. The look of the dungeons are changed. Interesting.
Yes, Geigs, whatever. It's got a couple of big AoEs that have got staggered timings that'll actually catch new players off guard. It looks and feels.
Yeah, and that actually is the solution then, right? That actually makes sense. The solution to fix the slow start of A Realm Reborn, they've already, I think, made story changes and story cuts to A Realm Reborn, and they are now going ahead and doing raid design changes and dungeon design changes in A Realm Reborn. And if they keep this up and they keep refining it, I think they would be able to put themselves in a position where they're putting maybe not their best foot forward per se, but definitely a lot better than the way it is now. And they probably know that they have a problem with the retention because of this reason.
Feels like a tutorial for the dungeon style that the team starts in Stormblood. And honestly, it is faster, it is more fun, and it's way less annoying than before. And then through the dungeon, even little details have been updated, like the lighting is just more atmospheric. The fire sands you need for progression are...
One thing I'm curious about with Final Fantasy is there is a graphical bottleneck that Yoshi P has to deal with because the game needs to be able to work on PlayStation 4, which by now is relatively old software and still uses a standard HDD, right? A standard hard drive. I wonder when, they're going to drop support for PlayStation 4 and then allow Yoshi P to then take the graphics to a whole new level. I think they're already putting in shaders, right? And also, I think they're not only doing it because of PlayStation 4, but they also want to maintain accessibility. Just yesterday in chat, someone was talking about how they played FF14 on their MacBook. And, truth be told, my hardware isn't the best hardware either. My gaming PC isn't the best one in the world because I never really expected that I'll start streaming with it. And I kind of just got it to play World of Warcraft on it back when I did get it, like about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And given that that's the case, it's allowing me to be able to stream the game and stream it well. Whereas if I tried games like Escape from Tarkov or tried Elden Ring, these games I wouldn't be able to stream on my computer. And so it also gives you that accessibility. And to what extent is that accessibility with the hardware creating a situation where people who otherwise wouldn't have the chance to play other games get to play FF14? And how many people are on older hardware that are relying on the graphics being as, I don't want to say outdated, but as sparse as they are, in order for them to be able to play the game, I'll get to chat in a second, guys. I'm gonna try to focus on the video so I could upload this as a VOD later.
Are set out right in front of you instead of just being slightly hidden. Things like that to smooth it out. And unfortunately, there are some downsides, like in Totorak. This new approach throws some of the baby out with the bathwater. All the dungeon exploring kind of old school soul is gone. The poison pods are gone. The webs that split the party are gone. Even the photo cells you had to gather are gone. It does feel more generic than before. And even though it was a bit of a pain in the ass, I mean, it was quite thematic as this deep, dangerous dungeon full of traps and stuff like that. Even though it looks a lot prettier now, you can't help but mourn a bit of what was lost, especially when they haven't really added mechanics to make up for that. But what it has done, though, is it's removed the possibility for a really new player to get super confused or frustrated. Or maybe worse, a new tank to get flamed by somebody doing leveling roulette for not knowing the path off by heart.
I don't see that happening much, you know. I've played FF on a few different characters now, you know, on and off, before I really started committing to it more recently. And I don't think I've told you guys this before, but my very, very first time playing the game, it was, I don't know, like 10 months ago or so now, before I bounced off because, you know, I got that culture shock having been someone who came from WoW. But my very, very, very first time, truth be told, I played a Marauder. And so I went in as a tank, and people were always so nice. People were always supportive. I've never, especially in lower level content, had a situation where someone was just a complete asshole to me. Now, there was that one time I talked about on a video where on my ninja, someone was a tank and they did poorly and they ended up blaming the healer for their mistakes. But even then, it was extremely mild. I don't see a situation where a tank is really getting flamed in Shatashta or in Copperbell Mines for not being able to perform. How often does that happen? Because I've never experienced anything like that before at all.
So as much as we've lost, it probably is a net gain, especially since those changes are almost certainly made not just for the players, but also to allow for the new duty support system to actually work. I mean, those NPCs that go in the dungeon with you probably wouldn't be able to deal with Totorak without a whole bunch of extra work. So it does seem that gutting that complexity kind of kills two birds with one stone. Over in Hawk Manor, though, well, the teleport back to the start is a great add, and the mob positioning changes are just kind of nice. A lot of groups would get caught off guard by the patrolling maidservants around the first corner. But now it is designed so that only one patrol comes, and
I don't know how much my experience having come from WoW has shaped my ability to pick up combat extremely quickly in 14. Like, for example, I've been using an MMO mouse for fucking years now, for almost a decade. Like, you see, I have this mouse here with all the 12 buttons and then like that third click. And I'm so used to using it, and I'm so used to target-based combat and tab targeting combat that going into 14 for the first like 50 levels, even now I still think the combat is relatively easy to pick up and it isn't challenging at all. I wonder if I hadn't come from WoW, if some sprouts actually like do struggle to understand how to like use their rotation and are slower to kind of understand how tap targeting works and actually struggle in dungeons like this. I wonder if that's the case. Nala, what are you doing? Guys, I'm on the dog sitting duty today, and this dog is like, she's chewing on the freaking can I show you guys? She's chewing literally on the table, like on the corner of the table. Hold on. No, don't chew on that. Stop. Don't. Stop it, okay? I hope she stops, man. This is gonna be a shit show today. No, no. No? Okay.
And it should catch you just as you almost kill the
Yeah, it's gonna be a shit show with the dog sitting, but I have to do it.
first enemies, which just gives you that little bit of a hint of danger, but then without kind of having more of a wipe if you're in there with a newbie healer or tank. Smooths the experience out. Then the last boss was also redesigned. So instead of the awkward lantern stuff, she now spawns sentries that have got room-wide gaze attacks. So if you've made it to level 30 without looking...
Dude, I don't know how to do these mechanics. Even still, being level 60 something, every time I see one of these mechanics where the whole fucking floor lights up in mechanic, where do I go? Where do you go? Do you just eat it? Yeah, we're streaming on both at the same time, Boki. How do you like get out of a mechanic like this when the whole fucking floor lights up? Like, what are you supposed to do in this situation?
You're, learning to look away from the eye, you will now. Brave Locks also is a great...
There's always a way to avoid them. How? Where? Look at the screen. In this case, it's always look away from the center. Turn your character away from the monster with an eye. Oh, so you just look the other way, like you turn their back to them, and then that way it does less damage? Don't look at the eye? Sometimes there's something to interact with. I don't know, that's confusing to me. Okay, so you like turn around so the mob can't see you. Okay. Just look away and it'll miss. What eye icon, man? Nala, can you stop eating the freaking table, man? Look at her, guys. Look, you guys see her? Look at her. Like, and I have a bone up here. I have her toys, bro. Why does she leave everything and go eat the table, man? You can see the red eye in the center of the screen. Oh, okay. Okay, I think I get it. I think. All right, let me just move my camera back. All right, that should be good. Nala, look, it's a bone. Chew on this. Okay, it's gonna be a shit show. It's gonna be a shit show today. Okay.
Learning to look away from the eye, you will now. Brave Locks also is a great example. That awkward route of, pulling through the water that has been killed. It's more obvious where to go. And the last boss is, again, a bit like an easy Stormblood boss. It's basically a tutorial that teaches you to pay attention to when things actually explode. Almost like an easy mode of Titan's bomb boulders. Then for completeness, Stone Vigil had the cannon.
Bro, I feel like I would probably be less lost now in some of the higher end content. I mean, I'm still in the Heavensward, right? But it's definitely higher end than Realm Reborn. Today we're going to finish Alexander. And I feel like maybe if I had these sorts of mechanics that I had to deal with from the beginning of Realm Reborn, I'd feel less lost as I do now. Because there are just like a handful of mechanics that like just confused me. I couldn't understand. Like just a couple of days ago, Chad was teaching me what a stack marker was and how to use a stack marker. I wonder if they put stack markers in a Realm Reborn dungeons now.
Mechanic removed from the second boss, and Zamail has had one awkward bit of mob positioning cleared up. But essentially,
oh, they do? Yeah, so I feel like they've probably created a situation now where you can go ahead and learn all of the mechanics that I didn't get to learn when going through Realm Reborn, and so by the time you get to higher end stuff, you're more prepared and you're less confused. And you get less mold moments.
Actually, look, the point of these changes is the devs know something very, very, very important. You can focus on making really good content and giving people really good reasons to play your game, but it can be very important to just focus on avoiding the opposite, such as feeling bored in Copperbell, getting lost in Kodarak, not knowing everywhere to go in Hawk Manor, or just generally getting pissed off.
Yeah, I feel like Hawk Manor in particular, as a new player, especially if you're tanking, is going to be a pain in the ass, right? Because I think by the time you get to the end of the manor, like the meta, like the thing that they have you do is teleport, right? So you can go back, like use your return. So you can start back at the steps at the beginning and then go upstairs, right? Like that's not something that's intuitive to anyone at all, but I think that's like the thing to do, right?
Off with a bizarre mechanic that's not intuitive. Those are the reasons why somebody just logs out of the game for the day. And then the next time they sit down to play a game, they're going to remember the reason why they got a bit pissed off and logged out the previous day. And maybe, just maybe, they'll play another game. And FF14 will lose that player. I mean, here's a funny example. Remember the quest that item level gated you until you bought the legs from a nearby vendor? Well, in Yoshi P's Famitsu column, he explained that of all players who quit the game by level 14, their analytics showed that 7% of them stopped after that specific quest. That's the quest.
Oh wow. Holy shit.
Important.
Which quest is he talking about? Which quest is making everyone quit the game?
Pissed off and logged out the previous day. And maybe, just maybe,
which was it?
Play another game. And FF14 will lose that player. I mean, here's a funny example. Remember the quest that item level gated you until you bought the legs from a nearby vendor? Well, in Yoshi P's Famitsu...
Oh, that early one? The one in Limsa? At least it was in Limsa for me. Holy shit. That's the one that made everyone quit. Like, you get out of Limsa for the first time, and then you go outside, and then it's like, okay, upgrade your gear and then talk to me. I remember that quest, and I'm not gonna lie, my first time doing it was annoying as fuck to me too. It was annoying as fuck to me, and the only reason why I found it annoying the very first time I did it was because, like, I had my WoW brain on, and so I'm just so used to, like, face roll easy, like, it tells you exactly where to go, tells you exactly where to click, and, like, there's not much actually using your brain in questing. And so I remember it was that one moment where, like, it forced me to, like, snap out of it and, like, actually use my brain and, like, go and find the vendor and buy from the vendor and, like, figure out what was going on. I do remember, as a brand new Sprout, that quest was actually confusing to me too. Like, I figured it out, obviously. If I hadn't played WoW, I wonder if I would or not, because I knew what item level was. Like, I knew how things worked, in an MMO. That's interesting. Because I do very, like, starkly remember that quest being the first time I had to actually pay attention, like, a lot more and, like, use my brain to figure out things that weren't necessarily intuitive to me. Like, and I think that quest could have been done better in terms of how intuitive it is in general. Like, it's not that intuitive to know what to do, even as an MMO player.
Specific quest. That's the quest that done them in. This stuff's important. The devs have the numbers. Now, that said, they've also made sure that players get a taste of how good later content is. And honestly, for me, this is the bit that's hype. Well, rest in peace, Westwind macros, and say goodbye to the main scenario roulette that took so long that you could perhaps make and eat dinner during the cutscenes. I think everyone had the same experience, Around the late 40s, the story gets gripping really quickly, and then you hit the wall of level 50 duties, and your experience gets a bit destroyed. I mean, Matt, he always had said that the first time he played the game, it was ruined by how bad the cutscene skippable version of Praetorium was. Like, can you imagine how bad that would be? And it took a lot of convincing for him to try the game again in a few years. God. Good thing he came back. So thankfully, Yoshi P and crew are on the case here, and now 2.0's ending is as good as it deserves to be. Honestly, the 6.1 changes here are just...
The level 50 duties, those were not necessarily difficult for me. I mean, they were challenging in a fun way, but do most people find that the level 50 duties are hard? Like, do most people feel like they hit a wall at the level 50 duties? I didn't feel it at all.
Phenomenal for new players. They're phenomenal for roulette runners. And even if you want to go and do some New Game Plus to see how good those solo duties are, it's worth it. Ridditon was an important villain, one that taught us the other side of Empire Bad of that story. But his showdown at Cape Westwind was quite literally a joke. A funny one, but now it's actually good, because now it's a solo fight that tests the player's reflexes, but more importantly, it has gameplay that shows...
Dude, this fight is so good. This was one of the most memorable fights I've done so far. Like, after doing the 6.1 patch, holy shit, this was my first fight that I thought, holy shit, this is a fucking fight. Like, this ain't a face roll. Like, I have to pay attention here. There's a shit ton of mechanics, and I have to actually try hard here. This was the very first fight with the 6.1 changes.
Of his character, and just how much he believed in the cause. He has a full-on Warrior of Light style breaking his limits bit. It ends in this moment of pure desperation with him trying to take you down with him. They turned a joke into a serious moment that proves this character's conviction and actually teaches you how much the non-conscript Garleans actually believe in Gaius. Then we've got Castra Meridianum. Like Totorak, yeah, it's lost a little bit of its flavor now that you're not blowing up the cerulean pipeline.
Oh my god, dude. Finding the fucking generators in this duty was such a pain in the ass, dude. Like, if it wasn't for chat, I probably would have failed the duty like 3 or 4 times before I figured out where the generators were. That shit, like, why are they so hidden? Oh my god, this freaking duty was annoying. In general, I don't like duties because I feel like I never know what to do, but this duty in particular was a pain in the ass, man.
And Livia doesn't fight in her suit of armor first, but in exchange, it's faster, it's a more streamlined experience, and once again, the boss fights actually feel like boss fights instead of feeling like nothing. Instead of waiting around, you now genuinely have fun. And thankfully, that huge detour with the invincible enemy is gone. So you're in and out 15 minutes tops, and it's just better quality content.
Yeah.
Of course, that's not the biggest thing. We've arrived at it, Praetorium, one of the most frustrating experiences ever put into the game. So often we get to say this. What might have been the single worst bit of content in this game?
Was it really that bad? Because this is the most fun I have had in Final Fantasy XIV to this day so far. You know, having now finished patch 3.3 in Heavensward, this fucking dungeon and the duties that follow it were the most fucking fun I've had by far in the game with the 6.1 changes. Was it really that bad? Was it that hated before? Because if it was that bad, holy shit, they made a change.
It was super fun by comparison. It still has most of the unskippable cutscenes, but every single point that you would skip mobs or, to teleport or otherwise, the jank, the weirdness has been removed.
It was that bad, damn.
Now all the boss fights actually feel like real boss fights. The Vanguard has you spreading and stacking quickly, Nero has a knockback that can throw you into his electric, and Gaius, his fight now has one of the coolest moments of 2.0, basically. His cross slashes come in from the sides, artillery bombards the platform, forcing you to move, and he even...
I think what also made this fight so fun to me, looking back, is I had just gotten a lot of new signs for my ninja, and my ninja just hit this exponential curve in complexity now. And it kind of leveled out now because I memorized all my signs, but I just was getting all of my signs for the first time. So not only was there a lot of mechanics that I wasn't used to doing and having to really pay attention to, and not only were those mechanics so fast-paced and engaging, but also my class rotation was rather difficult for me at the time as well. And so that combination, and then you add the music and you add the story, it just made it peak experience for me.
Charges up a gorgeous looking limit break. Essentially, it is a humongous upgrade. Ultima Weapon. It was one of the not good, most anticlimactic moments. The villain that everything was building up to. The immense power of the Garlean Empire. And then it barely tickles you and it dies in seconds. The fight goes so fast that you never get to experience the primal essence being ripped out. You don't get to experience... Hydaelyn's involvement basically was not super obvious. Now, though, it is one of the best moments in the entire game.
Yeah.
The primal...
I would say, I haven't gone through the entire game, but of my play experience so far, this shit was the shit, man. In a way, it almost fucked me over. Because, now my standard for what raid design in Final Fantasy could be went from, here to, here, right? And then because the Heavensward raids aren't as modern as the changes they did to, I think it's called Praetorium, right? In 6.1. And given that that's the case, I had peak raid experience, or what feels to me as peak raid experience so far, and then I go back to the older Heavensward stuff and it feels way worse, man. It feels way worse, man. In a way, it almost made it worse for me to go through a lot of the stuff in Heavensward, and even now in Alexander, it's okay, whatever, but it wasn't as good as this, man. I hope they go back and they change the Alexander stuff too, and some of the raids in Heavensward as well.
Mechanics threaten to wipe the party until Hydaelyn speaks to you and intervenes. Every mechanic is dangerous but obvious and is fun to deal with. The two phases of this fight feel radically different. Basically, it feels like Endwalker content instead of something they chucked together in a rush back in 2013. 2.0 finally has the climax it deserves. And the same goes for the La Habrea solo duty that happens after Ultima Weapon. How cool to have this epic content back to back. No one has actually seen La Habrea do his mechanics in years, and now every player has to 1v1 him, and he takes no prisoners.
I liked that too. I don't remember if there was any other dungeon or raid that I've done thus far besides this one that takes you in a situation where you have to do a trial or a duty or whatever by yourself, right? And you have to stand on your own 2 feet, because the thing with group content in general is you can get carried. And, even if you slack a little bit, someone can pick up the slack somewhere else. But here, they like weave it in a way that I found so good and so satisfying, where not only did I have to prove myself in a group, but then I had to go ahead and I had to prove myself individually. And I thought that was such good design, man. I don't think there's anything like that in WoW either. Like, yeah, you have the situation sometimes where, you know, a mechanic will like yeet you out as an individual, and then you have to like go kill a mob before you go back and join the rest of your team. Sure. And they had that in Alexander when I did Alexander yesterday as well. However, I never saw it where every single person has to go in by themselves, do a duty within a raid. And I thought it was so well done, man.
It now actually has this really beautiful moment with Hydaelyn and the crystals that you pick up during A Realm Reborn, where the FF prelude plays and then it transitions into Torn from the Heavens. Again, it's like they've just remade or remixed things in 6.1. It carries all the lessons they've learned of how to make the game great, with satisfying content. And now players don't have to finish almost 2 entire expansions before they get to hit that great quality combat content. Overall, it's simple. These changes, they're just the sort that make the...
Jeez, I was just talking about how, in a way, that these changes that you guys in chat are saying are like Stormblood quality raids, kind of like probably like lessened my experience in Heavensward, but I could only imagine the experience that you guys probably had that I never got to have, where you would have like not bad, but like relatively bad raids all the way through A Realm Reborn, and then again through Heavensward, and not really feel like the quality of the raid content increase until Stormblood. Holy shit, you guys are patient. Like, I already tasted of the forbidden fruit. I already know what to expect. I know what this game can pull off. And I figured that out early compared to like a lot of people who didn't get to play it with the 6.1 changes for their first time. And so shit, man, y'all had some patience, man. Like, I probably like right now would have such a different perception in my mind of what to expect from raiding in this game. And I probably would like have this like conception in my brain that raiding in this game just isn't good and will never be as good as WoW, because if I'd never had that experience with 6.1 before. You know, but now that I've had that experience with 6.1, I know what this game can pull off. And dude, the raids can get fun as fuck.
Game better for players maybe like us running roulettes. But it's just so important for new players coming in. Look, MSQ still does get boring. If they could patch up initial MSQ, maybe make some of the, you know, the Crystal Braves.
True. Sometimes it does. Like, sometimes I'm doing MSQ on stream. I'm like, fuck me, man. Sometimes like, holy shit, I'm on the edge of my seat. But like it's usually like the thing that makes it even like weirder for me is like I'll look over at chat and people will be like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, look at this part, oh my god, it's so emotional, oh my god, get ready. And I'm like watching it and I'm like, this is fine. It's fine. And like some parts I feel like I'm more engaged with chat, and like it's interesting to see that contrast and like how like different people get like really like pulled in at different story points than others.
And all that stuff a little bit more compact, it would be great. But for now, the literal worst part of the player experience has been made infinitely better. Now, instead of being bad and frustrating, it is genuinely cool. And with those moments from Hydaelyn, suffice to say, there are moments later on in the game that will hit better for this new generation of players who get to experience this content properly. I mean, they've just brought this stuff almost up to Endwalker tier. The effect that this could have on player retention, theoretically then, could be huge.
Yeah.
Now that
that's literally what I was just saying, right? Like, if I didn't have the 6.1 Platorium experience that I had, my conception of what Final Fantasy PvE content is would be so different by now, and maybe I'd be making WoW content or Path of Exile content instead. If I had to go through all of A Realm Reborn and all of Heavensward and not have experienced that raid was like, that was my sucker. And guys, I fucking like, I like the MSQ. The MSQ is cool, but I like good PvE content too. And so like, this is true. Like it gave me an impression I probably wouldn't have had otherwise. The changes that they did in 6.1 for Platorium.
Free trials are resumed. And if they have a team dedicated to cleaning up this player experience, then I cannot wait to see what like playing ARR feels like in a few years' time. So good thing there's New Game Plus. So I guess to part, have you tried these changes? It was honestly kind of shocking to us looking at it. I mean, personally, I just thought, they'd fix a few things up, do a tweak here, remove a pain point here and there.
No, compared to like, because I did this with people, obviously, right? And it was a lot of the veterans' first time doing it, and it was my first time doing it. And like, at so many points, people were like, oh, this is different. Oh, this is different. Oh my God, this is different. And of course, I wouldn't know because that was my first and only time ever doing it. But it seemed like the veterans that I was running the content with were so delighted at the changes that were made.
But no, they have done so much work and it's really good work. So let me know what your experience has been. Maybe if you've got friends who've been on the fence, now's the time to give them that little nudge into the game. If you, of course, want to support what we do, you can check out Ren, who are an awesome sponsor with an awesome mission.
The only problem with, like, again, like the people who play Final Fantasy in general being an older demographic is if you tried it once before the 6.1 changes and then your buddy comes back to you and says, hey, yo, you know how you tried it before and you like kind of bounced off? Maybe you should come try it again now because like I promise it's good this time. I swear. I promise it's good this time. And because of how much first impressions really matter, I feel like it would still be hard to bring in people by telling them that, okay, there were changes made with 6.1 to the A Realm Reborn content and the PvE content if they already had that first like experience, just because of how first experiences matters. And that's a problem I think that you still kind of have to deal with and figure out. Anyway, that was a good video. I'm going to let Bagarlar finish here though first, and then we'll move on to the next video.
The link down below. So that's it from me. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for dropping by, and I'll see you next time.
Okay, let me catch up on chat a little bit here. I missed a lot of chat. So because of this new like restream software that I'm using to stream both on Twitch and YouTube at the same time, like my chat looks a little different. So let me just get a little acquainted with this. Hold on. You think they're just going to just main story content? Yeah, I heard that they already cut out a lot of A Realm Reborn story content. That was a lot of fluff. And like the way that I did was way more streamlined than a lot of people. Okay. Yeah, the new Planatorium is different. Yeah. Okay.